The silence of space had never been more deafening. For 50 years, humanity had lived in the shadow of the Warning War, a conflict that had forced Earth to unite as never before. The Earth Defense Force, or EDF as it came to be known, had risen from the ashes of that terrible conflict, a global military and scientific coalition dedicated to ensuring Earth would never again be caught unprepared. In the 5 decades since the alien force known as the Architects had retreated, humanity had leaped forward in technological advancement. The recovered alien vessel fragments and technology had accelerated human innovation beyond what would have been possible in centuries of normal development. Cities now reached far into the skies. Transport systems utilized partial gravity manipulation, and medicine had conquered diseases once thought invincible. Yet beneath this progress lay a constant, nagging fear. The Architects, so named because they seemed to build and destroy worlds with equal precision, had retreated, but no one believed they had forgotten Earth. The Warning War had ended not with their defeat, but with their choice to withdraw after receiving a message that had since become legend. Attack again and face total annihilation. These words, delivered by Marcus Lane 50 years ago through his revolutionary harmonic wave weapon, had become both a rallying cry and a sobering reminder. Lane himself had become a figure of almost mythical status. Though he had passed away 15 years after the war, his work unfinished. His legacy lived on in what was now called Project Chimera, a specialized division of EDF dedicated to maintaining and advancing his technologies. At the heart of Project Chimera stood Dr. Eris Thorne, a brilliant but eccentric scientist who had risen quickly through the EDF ranks. At 35, Thorne was already the youngest ever director of the project, having dedicated his entire adult life to understanding and refining Lane's work. His particular obsession was the harmonic wave weapon, the mysterious device that had somehow convinced the Architects to retreat without actually destroying their fleet. Thorne was an odd figure at EDF headquarters, tall and wiry with perpetually disheveled dark hair and intense eyes that seemed to be looking at something beyond what others could see. He was known for working days without sleep and for his inability to maintain small talk. His colleagues respected his brilliance, but found his social awkwardness and occasional outbursts of frustration difficult to navigate. Some whispered that he was too unstable to be trusted with such dangerous technology, but his results were undeniable. On this particular day, Thorne sat in his laboratory, surrounded by holographic projections showing wave harmonics and energy fluctuations. He was trying, as he had been for years, to decipher the peculiar modifications Marcus Lane had made to the original weapon designs. There was something about the frequency pattern that didn't align with the theoretical models, something Lane had never fully explained in his notes. There has to be a safety mechanism, Thorne muttered to himself, manipulating the projection with his hands. Lane wouldn't have created something this powerful without an emergency override. His concentration was broken by a priority alert sounding throughout the facility. Moments later, his communication device lit up with a direct message from EDF Command. All project leads to report to Central Command immediately. Priority Alpha. Thorne's heart raced. Priority Alpha was the highest alert level, one that had never been used in his lifetime. When he arrived at the vast Central Command chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Large screens displayed what appeared to be tracking data from the deep space monitoring outposts. General Eva Rostova, the stern commander of EDF's military division and a veteran of the Warning War, stood at the center of the room. At 68, she remained imposing, her silver hair cut in a precise military style, her posture unbending. The scars on her face, earned during the Warning War, seemed to deepen as she frowned at the displays. Dr. Thorne, she acknowledged as he approached. What we feared for 50 years has finally happened. She gestured toward the main screen, which showed a massive object moving through the outer solar system at impossible speeds. The object was enormous, at least 20 kilometers in length based on the scale markers, and its movement patterns defied known physics, changing velocity and direction without apparent propulsion flares. It entered the solar system 6 hours ago, Rostova continued. It's not broadcasting any signal and hasn't responded to our attempts at communication. Is it them? Thorne asked, though he already knew the answer. The patterns match what we have on record from 50 years ago, Rostova replied grimly. It's the architects. They returned. The room erupted in controlled chaos as officials from various EDF divisions argued about the appropriate response. Some advocated for immediate military action, a preemptive strike to show Earth's increased strength. Others cautioned restraint, suggesting that perhaps diplomatic contact might be possible now. General Rostova silenced the debate with a sharp command. We don't have time for this. Dr. Thorne, I need to know if the harmonic wave platforms are ready. All eyes turned to Thorne. The HW platforms were a network of 12 orbital stations equipped with the most powerful version of Lane's technology ever built. They had never been activated outside of carefully controlled tests. They're operational, Thorne said carefully, but there are still significant unknowns. The harmonics aren't fully stable at maximum output, and we haven't completed the safety protocols that. Can they fire if needed? Rostova interrupted. Thorne hesitated. Yes, but I wouldn't recommend. That's all I need to know for now. Rostova cut him off again. Return to your facility and prepare the platforms for possible activation. This is not a drill, Dr. Thorne. As Thorne left the command center, his mind raced. The HW weapon was Earth's most powerful defense, but it was also potentially its greatest liability. Lane's original designs contained notes and warnings that suggested even he hadn't fully understood the weapon's true capabilities. What if firing it at full power created consequences beyond their control? Back in his laboratory, Thorne frantically reviewed Lane's original notes. Cryptic journals filled with calculations, theoretical models, and occasional personal reflections that bordered on the philosophical. One passage in particular had always troubled him. The harmonic wave isn't just a weapon, it's a key. In creating it, we may have opened a door we don't fully understand. There's a reason they fear it so much, and I'm not convinced it's simply its destructive capability. Thorne had never been able to decipher exactly what Lane meant, but now, with the return of the architects imminent, these words took on new urgency. There had to be something he was missing, some aspect of the weapon that Lane had deliberately obscured in his documentation. As he ran diagnostic after diagnostic on the HW platforms, a peculiar energy signature caught his attention. It was faint, barely detectable above the background noise, but it was consistent across all 12 platforms. A dormant frequency embedded in the system itself, one that didn't appear in any of the design specifications. What did you hide, Marcus? Thorne whispered to himself. What were you really trying to tell us? With the alien vessel now officially designated Harbinger approaching Mars orbit, time was running out to find answers. The strange vessel came to a complete stop near Mars, defying the laws of physics as understood by human science. No deceleration phase, no gradual slowing, just an immediate transition from movement to stillness that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Then, without warning, the massive ship began deploying smaller craft. Thousands of them, each about the size of an Earth fighter jet. They spread out in a complex formation and began heading toward Earth, bypassing the defensive outposts on Mars and in the asteroid belt without engaging them. They're ignoring our outposts completely, reported Admiral Chun from the Mars Defense Station. It's like they don't even register as threats. In Earth orbit, the EDF fleet mobilized. The flagship Defender, along with 20 of EDF's most advanced warships, moved into position to intercept the incoming vessels. These ships represented the pinnacle of human military technology, fusion-powered engines, energy shields derived from recovered alien tech, and weapon systems far beyond what had existed during the Warning War. This is Admiral Kessler of the Earth Defense Force, broadcasted the fleet commander on all frequencies. Unidentified vessels, you are entering restricted space. Reduce speed and state your intentions, or we will be forced to take defensive action. No response came. As the alien craft continued their approach, General Rostova made the call from EDF Command. Fire warning shots. Let's see how they respond. The EDF fleet opened fire with precision energy weapons, carefully targeting the space ahead of the leading alien vessels. The shots illuminated the darkness of space with brilliant blue energy, a display of force that would have been impossible 50 years earlier. The response was immediate and chilling. The alien vessels didn't change course or speed. Instead, strange energy fields manifested around them, shimmering with colors that human eyes struggled to process. The EDF weapons fires simply disappeared into these fields, absorbed completely. Then, with surgical precision, 3 alien craft broke formation and fired single energy pulses at 3 EDF ships. The targeted vessels didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only expanding clouds of subatomic particles. "My God," whispered someone at EDF command. The alien vessels continued their advance, now clearly demonstrating their technological superiority without engaging in full-scale battle. It was a probe, a test, perhaps even a taunt. In his laboratory, Thorne watched the feed with growing horror. The architect's technology had clearly advanced, just as Earth's had, perhaps more so. If they decided to launch a full assault, even the HW platforms might not be enough to stop them. His communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. It was from General Rostova herself. "Dr. Thorne, prepare the HW platforms for immediate activation. Authorization code Omega-79. Thorne felt his stomach drop. "General, with all due respect, we still don't understand enough about the Harbinger's capabilities or defenses. If we fire the HW and it fails to stop them, or worse, if it triggers some kind of catastrophic reaction." "That's an order, Doctor," Rostova interrupted, her voice steel. "The President and the Security Council have made their decision. We cannot allow those scout ships to reach Earth atmosphere." "We need more time," Thorne insisted. "The dormant frequency I discovered, it could be crucial. Lane built it into the system for a reason." "We don't have more time," Rostova replied. "Those vessels will reach our orbital defense perimeter in less than 2 hours. The platforms must be ready." After the call ended, Thorne slammed his fist on his desk in frustration. The politicians and military leaders were reacting from fear, not understanding. The HW weapon wasn't just another military asset to be deployed at the first sign of danger. It operated on principles that pushed the boundaries of known physics, principles that even he, after years of study, didn't fully comprehend. His second-in-command, Dr. Eliza Kwan, approached cautiously. "What are our orders?" she asked. Thorne looked at her for a long moment. Kwan was one of the few people he truly trusted, brilliant, methodical, and more importantly, someone who understood the gravity of their work. "Officially, prepare the platforms for full activation," he said quietly. "But unofficially, help me figure out what this frequency is for. Lane left it there for a reason, and I think it might be our only real chance." For the next hour, as the rest of the team worked to bring the HW platforms to full operational status, Thorne and Kwan focused on the mysterious frequency. They analyzed its pattern, comparing it to Lane's original designs and the fragmented data recovered from the alien technology after the Warning War. "It's almost like a modulation key," Kwan observed, "something that could alter the harmonic pattern of the weapon." "Yes," Thorne said, excitement building in his voice. "It doesn't just change the weapon's destructive capability. It changes its fundamental nature. Lane wasn't just building a bigger gun. He was creating something that could communicate on a level we don't understand." A priority alert interrupted their breakthrough. The alien scout vessels had accelerated dramatically and would reach Earth orbit in 30 minutes, not 2 hours as previously estimated. Thor made a decision. He couldn't explain his theory in time to convince Rostova or the other leaders. He would have to act on his own. "Eliza, I need you to help me modify the firing sequence," he said urgently. "We're going to integrate this frequency into the main harmonic pattern." Kwan's eyes widened. "That's directly against orders. They want maximum destructive potential. And they'll get a response," Thorne replied, "but not the one they're expecting. Trust me on this." As they worked frantically to modify the HW control systems, reports came in of the alien scout vessels beginning to merge and reconfigure. What had been thousands of small craft were now combining into larger structures, orbital platforms that positioned themselves strategically around Earth. These platforms began emitting a strange energy field that enveloped the planet, causing widespread communications disruptions and unusual atmospheric phenomena. Aurora-like lights appeared in skies worldwide, even at the equator. Electrical systems fluctuated, and strange gravitational anomalies were reported globally. Earth was being wrapped in an alien technology that no one understood, not destroying but subduing. General Rostova appeared on the laboratory's main screen. Her face was tense, her voice clipped. "Dr. Thorne, time's up. The platforms must fire now." Thorne took a deep breath. "We're ready, General. But I should warn you, I've made some adjustments to the firing protocol." Rostova's eyes narrowed. "What kind of adjustments?" "Technical modifications that will improve targeting and energy efficiency," Thorne lied, hating himself for it but seeing no alternative. "The effect will be more controlled, but equally effective." Rostova studied him for a moment, clearly suspicious but without the technical knowledge to challenge his claim. "Very well. You have authorization to fire. May God help us all." The connection terminated, and Thorne turned to his team. Most of them had no idea of the changes he and Quan had implemented. They saw only their leader preparing to activate Earth's ultimate defense system. "Begin the firing sequence," Thorne ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. Around Earth, 12 massive orbital platforms aligned themselves. Energy began to build within each, creating visible distortions in space around them. The modified harmonic frequency integrated seamlessly into the weapon's energetic matrix, altering its fundamental nature in ways that even Thorne couldn't fully predict. "Platforms at full power," reported one of the technicians. Thorne closed his eyes briefly. "Fire." 12 streams of energy, visible as brilliant white-blue beams, erupted from the platforms. They converged at a precisely calculated point in space before the combined beam shot toward the Harbinger near Mars. The energy wasn't the destructive force that EDF Command had expected. Instead, it was a complex, modulated wave that interacted with both the alien energy field around Earth and the massive vessel itself. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The alien energy field surrounding Earth shuddered visibly, its colors shifting rapidly before collapsing entirely. The orbital structures, the merged scout ships, seemed to convulse as their own energy systems were disrupted from within. Several of them tore themselves apart, their pieces scattered into orbital debris. The Harbinger itself, though far from being destroyed, clearly felt the impact. Its massive hull vibrated visibly, and parts of its outer shell cracked, revealing glimpses of a complex internal structure. It stopped all movement, seeming to reel from what it had experienced. On Earth, the strange atmospheric phenomena ceased. Communication systems returned to normal. It was as if a great weight had been lifted from a planet. In EDF Command, confusion reigned. The HW weapon had clearly affected the alien presence, but not in the way they had expected. There was no massive explosion, no complete destruction of the enemy forces. "What happened?" demanded Rostova over the communication link. "Why wasn't the Harbinger destroyed?" Before Thorne could answer, a new signal appeared on all communication channels worldwide. It was being broadcast in every major Earth language simultaneously, perfectly translated. "The existence of that weapon is unacceptable. It violates fundamental laws. Surrender its creator and the technology. This is the final request." The message confirmed Thorne's suspicions. The HW weapon was far more significant than just a powerful destructive device. It represented something that deeply concerned or threatened the architects on a fundamental level. General Rostova arrived at Project Chimera's facility 30 minutes later, her face a mask of controlled fury. Armed security personnel accompanied her as she stormed into Thorne's laboratory. "You deliberately disobeyed direct orders," she said without preamble. "You modified the weapon without authorization and potentially compromised Earth security. Explain yourself, Dr. Thorne." Thorne stood his ground despite the armed guards. "I made a calculated decision based on information that wasn't available to you or the Security Council. Destroying the Harbinger, if that was even possible with our current technology, would have been catastrophic. How could eliminating our enemy be catastrophic? Rostova demanded. Because they're not alone, Thorne said quietly. Think about it, General. A civilization capable of the technology we've witnessed wouldn't send their entire forces to deal with a single planet, especially one they already encountered and retreated from once. The Harbinger is likely just one vessel of many. He moved to his workstation and brought up his analysis of the alien message and the mysterious frequency. When Lane created the original HW weapon, he discovered something about its fundamental nature, something he chose to hide in his official documentation, but encoded into the weapon itself. It doesn't just destroy, it disrupts something fundamental about their technology, possibly even the physics they rely on. Rostova's expression remained skeptical, but she was listening. Their message confirms it, Thorne continued. They're not just afraid of the weapon's destructive potential. They're troubled by its very existence. It violates fundamental laws, they said. I think Lane discovered, perhaps accidentally, a principle that threatens their entire civilization. So you decided to send them a warning instead of destroying them, Rostova said, her voice hard. Just like Lane did 50 years ago. That's not your decision to make, Doctor. I gave us options, Thorne countered. If we had destroyed the Harbinger, we might have triggered a full-scale invasion from their entire civilization. This way, we've demonstrated our capability, but left room for them to retreat, to consider carefully whether engaging with Earth is worth the risk. Before Rostova could respond, an urgent message came through on her communication device. The Harbinger was moving, repositioning itself to directly face Earth. The remaining orbital structures had regrouped and appeared to be preparing some kind of action. It seems your warning wasn't effective, Doctor, Rostova said grimly. Thorne shook his head. They're making a statement, preparing to respond. But they haven't launched an attack yet. That's significant. The room fell silent as everyone watched the main display, showing the Harbinger's position. Tension filled the air as they waited for the alien vessel's next move. Then, the message came again, this time clearer and more direct. Surrender the weapon technology and its creators. Compliance will prevent extinction. Non-compliance will not be tolerated. Rostova looked at Thorne. They want you and the HW technology. Some would say surrendering both would be a small price to pay for Earth's safety. Thorne met her gaze steadily. Would it? Do you really believe they would be satisfied with just the weapon? Or would it be the first demand of many, leading eventually to complete subjugation? They're afraid of what we can do, General. That's a position of strength we shouldn't surrender. For a long moment, Rostova said nothing. The veteran of the Warning War seemed to be wrestling with memories of that earlier conflict, weighing options and consequences. Finally, she straightened her posture and turned to her communications officer. Establish a direct channel to the Harbinger using all available frequencies. And connect me to the Security Council. They need to hear what I'm about to do. Thorne watched in surprise as Rostova stepped to the central communication platform. He had expected to be arrested, not listened to. This is General Eva Rostova of the Earth Defense Force. She began, her voice strong and clear. Your demand has been received and considered. She paused, looking at Thorne, who nodded encouragingly. Earth will not surrender anyone or anything. The technology you fear is our shield, created to defend ourselves against those who would threaten us. You will withdraw from the Sol system immediately. Then, with a strength that echoed across 50 years of history, she delivered the words that had once before granted Earth a reprieve. Attack again and face total annihilation. The phrase hung in the air, a historic echo and a new declaration of Earth's determination. For what seemed like an eternity, there was no response from the Harbinger. The massive vessel remained motionless, its damaged hull still visible even from Earth's long-range observatories. Then, without any communication, it slowly began to turn away from Earth. The remaining orbital structures disengaged and began moving back toward the larger vessel. An EDF command, Disbelief gave way to cautious celebration. The Harbinger continued its slow but steady retreat, eventually accelerating toward the outer solar system. Within hours, long-range sensors confirmed that the alien presence was leaving the solar system entirely. The crisis, it seemed, had passed. In the aftermath, Thorne found himself in the unusual position of being both hero and villain. Some EDF officials wanted him court-martialed for disobeying direct orders. Others hailed his insight as having saved Earth from potential catastrophe. General Rostova, to everyone's surprise, strongly defended his actions. In a closed session with the Security Council, she argued that Thorne's understanding of the weapon and the aliens' reaction to it had provided Earth with its strongest position. "We sent them a stronger message than destruction could have," she told the Council. "We showed them that we understand the power we wield, that we can control it with precision rather than just blasting away. That makes us more formidable, not less." The debate over the HW weapon's future became the central political issue in the weeks that followed. Some nations called for its dismantling, fearing it would continue to draw alien attention. Others wanted it expanded, seeing it as Earth's best defense. The EDF itself was divided on the appropriate course of action. Thorne, however, remained focused on his research. The mysterious frequency that Lane had embedded in the weapon design was still only partially understood. He believed it held the key to truly mastering the technology, not just as a weapon, but as something more fundamentally important. 3 months after the Harbinger's retreat, Thorne stood at the observation window of his laboratory, looking out at the stars. The night sky seemed different to him now, not just a canvas of beauty, but a vast ocean filled with unknown dangers and possibilities. Behind him, complex energy models rotated on his holographic displays, showing the strange patterns of the embedded frequency. Each day brought new insights, new understanding of what Lane had discovered and partially concealed. Humanity had survived another encounter with the architects, but Thorne harbored no illusions that it would be the last. The harmonic wave technology represented something that fundamentally disturbed these advanced beings, something that perhaps challenged their place in the cosmic order. Earth had sent its final warning, but the true test would come in how humanity used the time this warning had purchased. Would they prepare wisely, advance their understanding, and establish themselves as a power to be respected? Or would fear and division weaken them before the inevitable next encounter? Thorne turned back to his work, more determined than ever. The harmonic wave wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to understanding a deeper reality about the universe. And somewhere in Marcus Lane's cryptic legacy lay the full truth about what he had discovered, a truth that might ultimately determine humanity's fate among the stars. As he manipulated the complex energy patterns on his display, Thorne felt both the weight of responsibility and the thrill of discovery. Earth's final warning had been delivered, but in many ways, humanity's journey was just beginning. Outside his laboratory window, the stars watched in silence, holding secrets yet to be revealed.